Okay. Okay, thank you everyone for joining us today. We really appreciate your presence again. So without taking much of our time, we'll go straight to the main thing for today. So today we'll be looking at anything is plausible, exploring data visualization in R. So today we'll be looking at the agenda here. Yeah. Okay, so we welcome our participants. We are highly delighted that you're able to join us today. We really appreciate your presence and your support all over the years. We're very much grateful for your presence. Thank you so much. And to all our members too, thank you for joining us. So I'm going to briefly introduce the organizers and also go straight to introducing our speaker of today. Then we'll allow her to have a time to speak to us. And then we have the Q&A session, which is going to be in between the time for this for our speaker as she goes into the presentation. She'll be giving us time to ask questions and also interact with her while she's giving the presentation. Then the last thing would be to give the vote of thanks. So the co-organizers of the Our Ladies Abuja are myself and Bilikisu Olatunji. So I'm a data scientist with Business Data Laboratory, which is also the sponsor of this program. So my co-organizers are Dr. Abiodun Egweno. So she's a field epidemiologist and AMR program manager at the Nigerian Center for Disease Control here in Nigeria. Then we have Dr. Mabel Ajumobi. She's a deputy director and assistant chief veterinary officer with the Federal Ministry of Agric and Rural Development here in Nigeria, Abuja as well. So we have a lot of people who are also working behind the scene to make sure that all our webinars are actually a success anytime we're having it. So we're grateful to all our members for that. So today we're going to be looking at introducing our speaker. So, okay. Our speaker for today is Tanya Shapiro. She's a freelance data consultant, helping businesses make better use of their data with bespoke analytics services. She is passionate about data visualization and design and fell in love with the online R community via Tidy Tuesday. When she's not working on data projects, you can find her working out on a Peloton or exploring downtown St. Petersburg, Florida. Okay, I hope I get that right. Okay, so I think she will do it better justice to introducing herself while I allow her to take up the stage. I'll stop sharing here. So Tanya, would you want to share your screen now? Sorry, apologies. The weather is kind of dry here, and I believe you can take on now.
During the talk, where we can do some Q&A. So let me go ahead and share my screen. By the way, there's nothing like getting the blood racing than when your desktop shuts off in the middle of a Zoom meeting. I just had that happen 10 minutes ago, but we're back online. So I want to go ahead and throw in the chat real quick. I've got a GitHub repository where I'm going to store all of the materials with additional resources and links today. So I'm going to throw that here in this chat. Please let me know if anybody has issues accessing it. It should be a public repository, so feel free to use the link too. All right, let's get right into it. So thank you all for taking time out of your weekend to join us today for a Data Viz talk in R. Thank you for Our Ladies Abuja for hosting me today. I'm very excited. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about. I love all things R. I'm very passionate about data viz too. And I just want to kind of set the tone for today. So everybody who's joined us, relax. There's no hands-on coding today. It's a Saturday. It's going to be very chill. If you're just waking up, enjoy your coffee. If you're winding down for the day, that's great too. We're going to do like a quick intro. I'm going to take some time to explore different visuals and libraries in R and how you could go about creating them. And then I also have some links to those resource materials. Again, I've thrown the link in the chat for the GitHub repository. And then we're going to have some moments for Q&A too. I don't want to save Q&A for the very end. We're going to have a break in the middle where you're going to have a chance to ask some questions. And feel free to put them in the chat too if you want to ask them while we're going. All right. I just want to confirm you can see my screen. If you could throw me some thumbs up on there, make sure that you're tuned in and you're seeing what I'm seeing, that would be great. I don't know if I can see the thumbs up emojis. Oh, perfect. Awesome. I love the thumbs up emojis. All righty. So I wanted to open up by just introducing myself and my journey to R. And I've met a few different people who do really amazing things with R. And what I've learned is that everybody has a different path into coding or data science or picking up things with data. Some people get their start. I apologize here. This is going to okay. My icon stopped jumping. I apologize for the break. But a little bit about me, I would consider myself, I have a very non-traditional road into data science, if you will. I didn't study computer science in college. I don't have a degree in statistics. I actually studied hotel management of all things. And I can tell you today, I do nothing with hotels except for check in and check out of them. It was a wonderful experience picking up that degree, but I slowly transitioned into my first role as an analyst shortly after. And in my first job as an analyst, I worked in the insurance industry. I learned SQL on the job, so working a lot with relational databases, querying data, and built a lot of my reports in Excel. There's nothing wrong with any of the tools you use, but Excel was like my first love, creating reports. And it wasn't until much later where I found out about R. In fact, I don't know if you can see me in the screen and not just the visual. The first time that I was introduced to R was this book here, and it's called R in a Nutshell. And somebody said, if you want to get better at reports, you should look at learning new tools. You don't have to do everything in Excel. You can learn R. And first glance, I thought, oh my God, this book is intimidating. It's huge. It's thick. Covers a lot of ground. And I thought, this is overwhelming. I'm going to stick with Excel for now. I don't need to learn R. So I put a bookmark in that, and I thought I'll revisit it maybe later. And that later point happened in my next role at a startup company. And it happened through happenstance, where I was on Twitter, on the Twitterverse, and people were posting really amazing data visualizations. And they were posting these amazing data visualizations with this hashtag Tidy Tuesday. And I was like, what is Tidy Tuesday? What are these amazing data visualizations that people are creating? What are they using to do them? Because it looked nothing like Excel. And I found out a little bit more. So Tidy Tuesday, for those who don't know, is a weekly series created by R for Data Science online learning community. And what they do is they publish a different data set every week, and they invite people to use R to create different visualizations and share that with the rest of the community. And not just share their visualizations, but a lot of people shared their code on how to do it. So I was mystified and intrigued, and I thought, well, maybe I should give R another shot. You can do so many amazing things with R. And I definitely didn't get that from this book the first time through. By the way, there's nothing wrong with learning in a book. Everybody has different ways of learning materials. I just happen to be more of a visual learner. So through the Tidy Tuesday community, I started trying out different libraries in R, started getting acquainted with R and RStudio. And then I started using it and incorporating it in my job as well to create different visuals for presentations, to embed them in different reports. And today, as a freelance consultant, I use it a lot for my clients too. Anyways, long story short, anyone can learn R. You don't have to have a traditional background to learn R. You don't have to be a certain age to learn R. And it wouldn't be without the amazing R community today that could help people like me and help beginners. I mean, you have wonderful teams like Our Ladies Abuja putting on awesome talks for people to learn who are curious. So it's through that community that's really created so many different learning materials out there that anybody can pick up R. So before we dive into data visualizations, I just wanted to take a quick step to kind of zoom out and how visualizations can play a part in day-to-day workflows. And the reason why I really love working in R is because you can do everything A to Z, from bringing in data to cleaning data to doing the actual visualization component, and then what I think is like delivering it. In my hotel school, I used to do cooking, but I do absolutely no cooking today. I'm an awful cook, but I always think cooking analogies are really nice when it comes to explaining code. So here it's like getting your ingredients. In R, you can do things like reading CSV files, web scraping. You can even connect it to databases with different libraries. There's also data packages that have data that you can use. And then after that, you can also prepare your data. So I don't know who works with perfect data sets today. If you are, I'm very jealous, because I will say the majority of my time is spent cleaning data and preparing it before I can actually get to the visualization part. And there's amazing libraries within R that can help you do that, like dplyr and data tables. We won't be talking about these libraries today, but there's tons of materials out there for you to learn if you're just starting. Today, our focus is really going to be on this third step here, which I like to consider the actual cooking or the visualization process. And we'll do like a quick tasting menu of different data libraries that you can use to create different type of plot types. Last but not least is the delivery mechanism on how you deliver these visualizations to your audience. So you could export them as static plots. You can do cool things like embed them in reports or websites. For those who are a little bit more advanced in R, you could easily do that by embedding it in like a Cordo report or R Markdown. And you can also use dashboard applications within R like Shiny. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to some of my favorite R packages. Any guesses on what the first package might be? So I want to introduce you to my best friend. So if you don't know what BFF stands for, it's like best friends forever. My BFF, ggplot2. And ggplot2 was the first library that I started using in R right out of the gate. There's a lot of great material via the Tidy Tuesday community on how to pick up ggplot. And ggplot is part of the Tidyverse package. Reason that I like it is that it's really popular in the R world. It's very versatile and dynamic. What do I mean by versatile? I mean, you can create a lot of different plot types. You can create box plots, line charts, bar plots, density plots, histograms, you name it. There's a bunch of them. And I have in the resources link a cheat sheet provided by the Posit team on all the different layers to ggplot and the different plots that you can create. Another thing that I really like about ggplot is it's highly customizable. So maybe out of the gate, it might look a little lackluster where it's black and gray and white, but with functions within that package, you can introduce colors, different typefaces and fonts, themes. It's truly endless, the amount of tweaking that you can do with plots. And the best part is it's really accessible because it's so popular. There's a lot of different learning materials available online. A lot of people have created amazing blog posts and YouTube series on how to use ggplot. By the way, I don't know if Pokemon is still a thing, but if I had to think of ggplot being a character, it would definitely be Ditto from Pokemon. And if you're not familiar, Ditto is a Pokemon that its unique ability is to transform and mimic the style of just about any Pokemon. And similarly, I think ggplot can do just about anything when it comes to plotting charts. So for those of you who are really new to ggplot2, I'm not going to go into the minutia and coding and all of the different functions in this. This is supposed to be just an introductory course on what you could potentially do with data visualization libraries. This slide is from an older workshop that I did with another Our Ladies chapter where we did ggplot and plot9. And the gist that I want to take away from this is that ggplot works in layers. It's like Legos. You can keep building and adding different things on top of each other. I also have links to this workshop as well if anybody's interested in taking a look. I wanted to dive right into an example with ggplot2 in action. And I'm circling back to Tidy Tuesday. So if you recall, Tidy Tuesday is that series that happens once a week where they publish a data set and they invite people to explore it. And at the same time that this data set was published, it's about the TV show Doctor Who, which is a sci-fi series. I was also reading a blog by Cedric Scherer, and some of you may know Cedric. Cedric is an exceptional, I would say, data wizard online, and I met him through the Twitter universe and was really inspired by his work. I have a link here to the blog post where he talks about the evolution of ggplot and the different types of plots you can create. So here, in what he's dubbed as the jitter lollipop graph, this is a different take on how you can visualize distributions. So instead of doing like a box plot or just a jitter, you're overlaying different elements to show averages for different groups and using the jitter to show the distribution for that. So here I've used another cool R package called Camcorder, where it renders like the stills of your different ggplots, and then it creates a GIF at the very end. And all that I wanted to say with this GIF is that everything is iterative and experimental, and sometimes it gets worse before it gets better, but it's a lot of playing around with ggplot, and this is pretty much the evolution of how I created this visualization about Doctor Who and the specific actors for Doctor Who and the averages for their specific seasons. This was created in ggplot. I should also mention that ggplot, there's several different extension packages created by different developers that plug into ggplot. So one of my favorites to work with is ggimage that allows you to plot images. So see how I've embedded the headshots for the different characters on here. I can do that with ggimage. Another library that's really cool to work with in ggplot is ggtext. Helps with enhancing annotations and labels. So for instance, if I'm using different font colors and different styles, I can do that all with ggtext. And then I like to call out sysfonts because I love working with different typefaces and fonts. And it's a nice way of importing either fonts from your local computer or even fonts from Google's font library. So you don't have to download 100 different fonts. You can just access them via sysfonts. All right, so this was a very specific example. Most of the time, and I think the more practical use case for ggplot is creating your traditional plots like line plots, bar charts, histograms, scatter plots. And it's really quick and easy to do it with just a few lines of code. And it's also nice to enhance these types of plots with extension packages that are available. So I've got a couple of examples here that I'm going to talk about. On the left-hand side, I have a simple line chart comparing Google search trends between ChatGPT and Lensa. For those who aren't familiar, both of them were really popular AI products. As of last year, I'm sure ChatGPT is still very popular. Maybe this needs to be updated with Bard versus ChatGPT, but in essence, all I wanted to show is that you can make very simple line plots and elevate them with a couple of tricks. So here I have another extension package called GeonTextPath, and this package allows us to plot labels directly on the lines, and we can do that with specific arguments within it. This data was also pulled with a data package called gtrends-r. So all it's doing is it's calling Google search results, bringing it in and bringing that data and making that data available. I want to call out real quick that all of the code for these plots is available on different GitHub repositories that I have. So if you want to take a look, because I want to be honest with how many lines of code it takes, even if you know nothing about code, I just want to show you that it only takes this much code to create the plot. Most of the other code is the pre-processing of the data or formatting of the labels. And then 50% of my time plotting is actually with the theming and customizing. So if we just wanted a quick line chart, you could run this part of the code and it would create it. On the right-hand side, I have a different plot showing popular horror movies based on revenue from the box offices. This visualization was actually created in a separate workshop with Our Ladies Paris. And what we wanted to do was try to elevate a basic bar plot with a couple of different elements. So here we've made use of one of my favorite packages, ggimage, to plot the movie posters on the left-hand side. We've used a basic geom bar, a function within ggplot, to create those bar plots. And then we've used some text annotations, for instance, here, and some text labels too. And a lot of theming. If you go into the source code for this, I would bet 80% is just around the theming for creating the dark mode, getting rid of certain grid lines, and creating the different fonts for this. But there's more. ggplot is so much more than just traditional plots. I was actually very surprised that ggplot is very robust at dealing with geospatial data and creating maps. And there's a whole different subgroup of specialists who are amazing at creating maps online. I am not one of them, but I definitely gave it a shot during, there's a series called the 30-Day Map Challenge, and it happens in November. And they have a prompt every day for people to try out different maps. So one day it could be doing things with points, one day it's doing things with lines, it could be a specific color, a specific topic. So I gave it a shot and used it as an opportunity to try out different things with ggplot and mapping. On the left-hand side, I have a line map of Basel, Switzerland. Basel, Switzerland is actually the place where I was born and I grew up. So I wanted to pay homage to my hometown with a line map. And if you look at the code behind the scenes for this, just to show you again, if you look at the ggplot code, it's only a couple of different objects here. So it's really easy to just start layering things. It's using a function called geom_sf to plot the different lines. And I want to be completely candid. My biggest challenge with figuring out how to do things with maps and ggplot was actually with processing and wrangling the data. A lot of the times it's easier to deal with some of the traditional plots because the data is 2D. You're working with rows and columns. With geospatial data, that might not be the case. You might be working with complex GeoJSON files, with shape files, but there's different libraries in R that let you handle and wrangle that data as well. On the right-hand side, I have a choropleth map of specific hues of red, green, and blue that are contained in flags from around the world. So this is actually comprised of 4 different plots. So this is really, in essence, 4 different ggplots. And there's a ggplot extension package called calplot that'll allow you to combine plots together. This was a really cool one to work with. Again, the plotting maybe took me half an hour. The pain was the data wrangling process, not just the shape files for the continents, but it was actually getting the hues from all of the different flags. And there's a way to do that in R2. We won't get into too much detail on how to go about that process, but for anybody interested, I will definitely give you the library of how you can get colors from different images. Notice here that red is a very common color among flags. I think green is maybe the least common color among the three. But wait, there's more. There's always more. So in ggplot, I've seen amazing generative artists do really cool things outside of the box with ggplot. Like I'm talking creating pieces of art that you could potentially sell as NFTs. I'm positive one of them has sold stuff as NFTs before. But all of that to say is that you can use ggplot to do untraditional things like create art or create different shapes. And I like to think of ggplot as really specific grid line paper. And all of the different ways that you're plotting, it's really just shapes and lines and colors at the end of the day. And I've used it to experiment with a couple of ideas in the past. Here's two examples of my experiments. One was creating a plot which hopefully looks like a Nintendo Switch on the left-hand side. And another one was experimenting on how to create an iPhone with ggplot. ggplot is the main staple library to produce both. But I would be amiss not to mention that there's other ggplot extensions I use to render this. So for instance, with the curved edges of both the Nintendo Switch and the iPhone, I'm using packages like ggchiclet. And there's probably, I want to back up and say there's probably a million different ways that you can go about tackling a problem. It's just all about trying and giving things a shot and experimenting and seeing where it lands. But I'm going to pause here because I could talk on and on and on about ggplot. I'm not going to do that to you today. And I wanted to take this moment to open it up for questions before moving on to the next part. So Bilikisu, I don't know if you're online or if we want to take them directly from the chat.
Yeah. Okay, I'm online. Yeah. So
Okay.
Please, if you have questions, you can put them in the chat or you just signify so we can take the questions right now. Okay, we're going to share the YouTube channel handle. Okay, Oluwafemi Oyedele, you can go ahead with your question. You're raising up your hands.
Okay, thank you very much.
Kindly unmute yourself. Today is more motivational. We want to kind of encourage ourselves to learn R. Just like Tanya started, we all started from different fields. We all stumbled into R. We got to fall in love with R. So we want to encourage ourselves to just take that bold step to get to know R more. And it's not that scary at all. So Femi, you can go ahead, unmute yourself then.
Okay, thank you very much for the workshop and also Tanya for this presentation. I think I was still, once you showed this slide 11, I think I was still trying to wrap my head. Did you use any extension packages like the GG image in order for you to plot the iPhone, the ggplot?
Great question. And if you're ever curious and you want to see the whole code, I'm going to share this on the GitHub repository, but I've got code. I share most of my code on here. So if you take a look just at the libraries at the beginning, these are all the libraries that I've used. So I didn't explicitly call ggplot. ggplot is part of the tidyverse universe. I import tidyverse a lot because it contains libraries I use like dplyr. But the other two supporting actors in creating the plot are ggtext. So going back to, I think you were mentioning these icons. These icons are part of the Font Awesome library. And all I've done is I've imported Font Awesome as a font library. And then I use ggtext to plot those specific icons. So without taking up too much time here. You can see I've just put in the Font Awesome icons and they're specific, it's not Unicode, but there's specific codes for each icon within Font Awesome, and then rendering it with ggtext. Good question. I love working with Font Awesome. So a lot of the stuff, even the slide over here, these are all Font Awesome icons. This is actually a ggplot, by the way. So I've exposed all of you to ggplot before we even talked about ggplot. No, great question. Thank you. Any other questions?
Okay. Any other questions?
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, just picking back off of the Font Awesome tags. So if I take your code, I have to install it on my machine, right? It's not like a website where it'll just be on the server, right?
There may be a way to do it without downloading it locally. I personally don't know how to do that. I'd have to do some research. There might be other libraries that you can use. I think Shiny might have a function called icons that can help render it, but I sometimes just download it locally to make it easier. But yeah, if you've got any issues with like troubleshooting, feel free to send me a note too. I understand that sometimes it's difficult, especially if you want to deploy it to production and make it agnostic to systems.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
So do I have, okay, I think that was enough for now.
Perfect. We'll have another chance for more questions at the end. And
Okay, sorry. Would you want to take this person, Broma?
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for that wonderful presentation. Trying to make us understand the usefulness of ggplot and all that. You know, there's also ggplot2. What's the difference between ggplot and ggplot2? And again, like someone just asked before now about your codes. You know, picking your codes. You know, to making it. I can pick your code to me, but it depends on where I'm working and what I'm working and what data I'm working. Just like me. I'm a climatology. I deal with climate data such as sea level rise, temperature, precipitation, flooding, and all that. So I don't really know how your code might be able to help me to be able to, because I am in my first year PhD. So I'm looking at the effect of climate change in the coastal region, and this climate variables are what I'm kind of looking at. So I don't know if most of your code will be very useful for me to be able to see how I can navigate those data over there.
Great questions. To tackle the first one about what's the difference between ggplot and ggplot2, that is just me abbreviating it. The actual library name is called ggplot2. So if I refer to something as a ggplot, it's being rendered with the same library. I apologize for the confusion in advance. In terms of trying to figure out like the different use cases of how it might be applied to your job, that's a really good question. Some of the stuff, for instance, like this, the more artistic things might not be as useful for your day-to-day, right? If you're dealing with climate change and the effects of climate change on coastal regions, maybe exploring things like mapping data might be more useful. And this is me making assumptions because I'm not familiar with all the different problems that you might be encountering or the different things that you want to visualize. All I'm trying to do is give a taste of what you might be able to do with ggplot with a few examples.
Okay.
And this isn't, by the way, this isn't the end of the presentation. There's a few other data visualization libraries that we'll go into, but this is more of just like a conceptual, giving you an idea of what you could do. But there's a number of different plots that you
I think
can.
it's all right. It's all right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, no problem. All right. So I'm gonna switch gears here to talk about a couple of other libraries that I like to use. And I apologize for my cheesy humor. You already knew that what you signed up for when you saw the title, anything Plotsible. So I'm going to be talking about tables, and here I have a bunch of table packages congregating together around a table because there's always more room at the table for package favorites. I'm going to be specifically talking about React Table and GT. In the next slide, both of these packages are great for creating HTML tables. Sometimes you might have a lot of information, and in my instances, when I'm dealing with a lot of information and I don't know how to visualize it, sometimes a table is the best way to do it. And tables don't have to be boring. Tables can be really cool, and there's a lot of nice tricks that you can apply with these packages to elevate tables. So here's a couple of tables that I've done in the past. The two examples that I have on the bottom here are both created with a package called React Table Formatter. You can achieve very similar results with another package called GT Extras. And both of these packages are extension packages of their original counterparts. So for React Table Formatter, you have React Table. GT Extras plugs in with GT. And what I like about these libraries is that it gives you these styling options. You can add images in there easily. You can create this kind of color heat map tile effect. You could create spark lines. You can even add in icons. And the end product is something interactive. You're creating HTML code that you can then plug into websites or HTML reports. You could also render this as static visualizations using libraries like WebShot, or you could simply take a screenshot of it too, if that's easier. To do advanced styling for these tables, if you know HTML and CSS and you're comfortable working with those languages, there's also options to embed direct HTML code within your R code to create some customized results too. I've got code for both of these at the bottom. Here, this visualization, the rise and fall of big tech, I recently did as part of Tidy Tuesday. This is going to be the through line, is most of these visuals are going to be part of Tidy Tuesday, and they offer a lot of cool data sets. So the one from last week was exploring tech stocks. So here you've got everything from Apple to Tesla and looking at the deltas and the sparkline trends. It's very popular to see line charts in the stock market. So I thought it would be cool to try out spark lines for this one. On the right-hand side, I have a table visualizing Grand Slam tennis champions for women's tennis. And the motivation behind this was I was looking at Wikipedia tables online, and I thought, I'd be interested in taking that Wikipedia data and doing something with it. So for this data set specifically, I scraped it from Wikipedia with a library called rvest. If you're familiar with Python, it's a nice equivalent of beautiful soup. So I scraped the HTML table and then was able to use that data to create a visualization here with flags, with bar charts, and with the color tile heat map as well. Lots of cool things you can do with tables. These are just two examples. You can do a lot more with this. You can embed these in reports. You can embed these in dashboards, and we'll circle back to this towards the end of the presentation. All right, moving on to interactive visuals. So we talked a little bit about ggplot. Love ggplot to render static visuals. There's a number of different charts you can do, but what if you want to add some movement to it? You want to do some hover tool tips and click events. There's a couple of visualization libraries that I like to use. It's by no means a comprehensive list. There's tons of cool libraries out there, but here's just a few that I like to work with. So one of them is HighCharter, and HighCharter is a R wrapper for the JavaScript library HighCharts. And I want to back up and say, like, a lot of the time when people think about interactive visuals, they might say, oh, I need to know JavaScript in order to create interactive visuals. And these libraries make a good use case to say, you don't need to necessarily know JavaScript to make interactive visuals. There's people who've developed these nice packages that translate some of those JavaScript libraries to make it friendly for people working in R to produce something similar. So here on the right-hand side, I have an example of a dependency wheel showing the movement of different students participating in this exchange program called Erasmus. It's the EU student exchange program, and it's looking at different countries and showing the movement of students between countries. And if I hover over specific countries, it'll highlight those segments. I can also highlight a specific flow segment. So for instance, I can see a total of 1157 students participated in the program, and of that 306, or a lot of them, seem to do the program in France. This is another example of a Tidy Tuesday data set. It's available here in this link. The reason that I like HighCharter is that the developer, Joshua Kunst, also has great learning resources online on his site. So he's got great vignettes on how to do a number of different charts. This is just one example. Maybe a more practical chart would be doing a bar chart, which you can do in HighCharter. Line charts, you can even add drill down effects into it where you click on one thing and then it creates a different chart. It also works well with embedding in Shiny applications. I will say, if you're a complete beginner starting off in R, this library might be a little bit more advanced. It took me a while to get a handle of HighCharter, predominantly because of how it ingests data. It's mostly because it's not a perfect two-dimensional data set in some instances. If you're trying to create drill downs, you might be working a lot with nested data or nested lists. HighCharter also, by the way, you can do some cool interactive maps. But for interactive maps, I want to take a moment to talk about Leaflet. Leaflet is another JavaScript library, and someone developed a wrapper to use Leaflet in R, which I think is pretty cool. And I used this actually for a personal project of mine to take a look at contestants from one of my favorite reality TV series, RuPaul's Drag Race. And because the TV show has such a global footprint, I wanted to take a look at all the different contestants around the world and where they come from. Leaflet is cool because you can use it to plot markers like this. You can even add images. You can add clusters for that. So if I wanted to drill down, I could see different contestants. You have tooltips for things. I could even go ahead and click on something. And then I've got a HTML link that'll take me to a new page. So if I click on this, it'll pop up on different things. And plotting this didn't take a lot of effort. As long as you have the geo coordinates or the lat longs for your markers, it becomes really easy to use. For this project, the most time-consuming part was actually scraping the data. All of the data I used for this was available on Wikipedia. Took an enormous amount of time to do, but once I was able to get all that data and create the geo coordinates, it's very simple to take that data and plug it into Leaflet to create a visualization like this. Another thing, like thinking back to my insurance life, maybe a more practical use of Leaflet, for instance, would be to visualize claims of where claims occurred. So for instance, if I used to work in the homeowners insurance industry, Florida, to monitor properties in Florida, you might be plotting, for instance, where the claims occurred to see if there's particular patterns with that. All right, and whoops, I embedded this as an iframe, by the way, so this might be why I'm struggling to move on. All right, and last but not least, for interactive plots, because I love ggplot so much, I wanted to figure out if there was a way that you could make it interactive, and there's good news. There are different ways you can turn your ggplots into interactive visuals. One of my favorite ways to do that is with a package called ggiRaf. And essentially what it's doing is there's interactive counterparts for those geoms that let you do different things, like create hovers and click events. So here is an example of a tile heat map of Nobel Prize laureates, and it's based on the recipient's gender, female, male, or mixed team. And if you hover over the different tiles, it'll have the effect where it brings up the image of the recipient and a little bit about the motivation behind the recipient. Moreover, if I click, I've created a click event on the specific image. It'll open up a new window and bring me to the page for that Nobel Prize recipient. And that's how you can take a ggplot and you can bring it to life. It's a really cool trick. I think that the one learning curve for me was creating different IDs for it to make it interactive, but it was pretty straightforward to use and incorporate with a ggplot. I know there's other packages, for instance, like Plotly, and I believe there's a function called ggplotly, which will do something similar. I've got links to Plotly in the resources material, but we won't be covering it today in the presentation. Last but not least, I wanted to give a quick flavor of Shiny. There's not enough time in one workshop to cover Shiny, but Shiny is a library in R that lets you build custom applications. And here's an example of taking those interactive visualizations and embedding them in an application. So an example, one of my personal projects is analyzing my Peloton workout data. So Peloton is a workout app, also creates different fitness equipment like bicycles. And I'm going to open the app to take you to the Shiny application. So Shiny is unique in the sense that you can create different inputs to start filtering data, and then you're also working with outputs. And think of the outputs as all the interactive visuals that we've covered already, and there's so much more that you can do with it. This is React table in action. So here I've got the aggregated workout metrics that I have by instructor. So you can see plugging React table in, it's HTML, it moves, I can sort it, and it's easing in and out of the different bars. Similarly, here on the Spark line, I can hover over and see the actual numbers within the Spark line. Another example of embedding interactive plots in Shiny. Here's height charter in action. So these are height charter widgets. Here I have a tile graph to show my workout data by day of the week as well as time. At a quick glance, you can tell I'm not a morning workout person. I'm definitely more of an evening workout person. And there's the ability to create a number of different charts with height charter. So here's an example of tile chart and a donut chart too. I also have one with a donut chart, a line chart. And I can plug in different inputs or different metrics to look at by month. Just quick example of Shiny. There's so much more that you can do with these interactive visuals. Shiny's one way of doing it. You can also embed them in blog sites and your websites and anything HTML related. It's really cool to see it come to life. All right, and to close out, I just want to remind everyone, and I've got to remind myself, especially when I'm starting to learn something new, that we all start somewhere. And sometimes it can be really overwhelming to pick up something new, but the trick is just to start and then to keep trying. And I wanted to give a quick throwback to a plot that I created. This was my first ever Tidy Tuesday. I didn't even know what ggplot was at the time. And I took the data set, which was data covering wine quality and wine ratings and price. And I used Plotly to do a basic scatter plot to look at the data. It's amazing what you can learn through community online. I'm very grateful to those who share code, and I'm equally passionate about sharing code that I do today to help others. But I encourage everybody to try. If it's something new, there's no risk in trying, right? It never hurts to try, and just know that there's an amazing support system and community out there to help you as you go on that journey. And with that, I just want to say thank you. Thank you, Our Ladies Abuja, for hosting me. Thank you all for taking time out of your weekend to be here. We'll close it out with another round of Q&A if you've got questions. And then also feel free to connect with me. I'm on Twitter, LinkedIn, Fosstodon. So if you've got any questions, I'm more than happy to help as well on those platforms too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So do we have questions or comments? Okay, Aurora, you can go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Bilikisu, and thank you, Tanya, for a wonderful presentation. I just have one question. Plots that you used, or the visualization using React table formatter and the GT extra, how can they be included in an R markdown document?
Oh, this is a good question. And I will say that there's another fun talk that's coming up next week with Our Ladies Abuja on creating our Markdown reports. So that might be a cool one to tune into, but the way that you can put them into our Markdown reports is you essentially just run the code in there. You might not have support for React table yet in some R Markdown outputs, but GT and GT extras works really well with those outputs. I think it depends on what R Markdown you're using. So like if you're using PDF versus HTML. But yeah, there's a lot of cool talks on R Markdown and how to incorporate that. But I know for a fact you can use GT to publish it in reports.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Catherine,
Yes,
you
thank
can
you.
go ahead.
Great, thanks. Okay, Tanya, first of all, that was very, very interesting. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for encouraging me to keep trying. Now, the question I have, would you maybe say something about your process of exporting this from R, when we're not talking about R markdowns, but having like images or PDFs? Because I find this is another struggle once you actually made it to the plot to have it in the right size and fitting to your paper and so on and so forth. Would you mind saying a few words to that?
That is a great topic. And I will say I've struggled at first at saving it too, because sometimes you create this plot and it looks great on your screen. And then when you export it, the sizing is all wrong.
Exactly.
And I've experienced that too in the past. I have to do some digging on, I know there's been a couple of papers on tools that are supposed to make it more intuitive to use. For me, it's been a lot of trial and error. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I get it wrong too. But I think there's a more efficient process on how to do it. So I'm going to look on my end too, Catherine. And if I find it, I will pass it on to you. I promise.
That will be very nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Tanya. So do we have any, I can see some fantastic, really encouraging comments in the chat box. So thank you so much, Tanya. We really benefited from this. We really benefited from this webinar. Do we have any other person who wants to go ahead? Feel free. You can just raise up your, okay. Aliyu, thank you. You can go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Tanya, for a wonderful brief. I think we are now encouraged to use more of these packages. But in one of your graphs, I think one of the graphs, you said you use HTML styling. I don't know whether it allows you to use all the stylings or just some specifics available. Stylings available for
Great question. And you know, I'm not an HTML expert by any means. In fact, the quickest way that I've learned HTML is by doing like the inspect page and looking what other people have done on HTML, and of course going to online resources like W3 Schools. But HTML, if you want to do like something very specific, like creating maybe within a column like an image and then some text next to it and some text underneath it, the way that I've done that in the past is by creating HTML divs. So if you're familiar with like HTML, a div is just essentially like a block that contains everything together. And then you can create other columns or divs within it to blend it together. So all I'm doing within those tables, if I want something custom like that, is I'm injecting HTML code that's saying, I want to create a div with this element, and then I want to create another div within it to do something else with it. So I know it supports divs. I believe it supports spans as well, but there's a number of different things that you can do with HTML. And the way that I find writing HTML is the easiest is by using a library like HTML tools instead of having to write out HTML by hand, like start to finish in those strings. It can get really clunky writing HTML code in R. Great question. Thank you. right. By the way, if anyone,
Do we have any?
sorry, go ahead, Billy Kisu. I apologize.
Okay. Oh, no, no problem. So I'm just trying to encourage others to kind of give us a comment or questions. You can go ahead. We still have some time with Tanya, and I think she's willing to take up our questions.
And it's okay. I get it. It's Saturday. You know, my brain might be somewhere else too. So if you think of a question later, or you don't feel like asking a question right now in front of other people, I'm available online. My Twitter messages are open. I respond to people all the time. So feel free to ask there too. But I think we have a couple more questions if people want to come off mute.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead. Thank you.
again, very, very wonderful presentation. You know, when I talked about my field, you said maybe your code might not be feasible, but I just want to say maybe because I've seen you've gone so much, you've done so much well in this our business, and you should be able to see how you can help some of us. Maybe if we have any problem, I know you can easily, because it's not that difficult, because you already know what it is to get to navigate data, to see, you know, like your supervisor will want to see how brilliant, how technical you are in trying to present your message, and it's better. Like someone like me, I don't really, from beginning, I read mathematics, my first degree mathematics, my second degree climate change, EFELT, and now I'm doing another calculation. So I'm really bored with reading so much text and all that. So in fact, there isn't this part of my work that has to do with reviewing the policy, content analysis, and it's so difficult because I'm really good at, you know, kind of calculation. What I'm saying is that I know I'll be disturbing you once in a while anyway, because I know you know what you're doing in this field. So despite the fact that this climate a variable, you can see, you know, see how you can see work with me to see how I present my work better. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. And I'm always here to brainstorm ideas with people or troubleshoot things.
Yeah.
So anytime, you know, I might not understand the topic immediately, but what I love about R is that it can apply to so many fields, right? It's agnostic. People in science use it, people in the sports world use it. There's so many problems out there where it's applicable. But I, you know, would be very curious to see what you do with R in regards to climate change. I'm sure there's a lot of cool projects to be done there too. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I think that's it for questions.
Okay.
No problem. I don't want to keep people on their weekend, but sorry about the echo, but feel free to reach out to me on any of those platforms. And thank you all again for tuning in and joining me on your weekend. I appreciate it and hope everyone has a wonderful Saturday, the rest of their Saturday and Sunday.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. So I want to use this opportunity to thank everybody for joining us today. And Tanya, I'm really grateful. We're able to achieve what we really set out to achieve today. From the comments we're having in the chat, everybody is motivated to learn R. And if you have to check the comments here, most of them from our community here, I think we really passed the message. I'm really grateful. You did a great job. So thank you so much. On behalf of our group, I want to say a big thank you to you. The appreciation is still coming in. Yeah. So okay, Dr. Biori, you're still there. So I want you to give a really good vote of thanks to Tanya on our behalf. So please go ahead, Dr. Biori.
They might
Dr. Biori, there?
Yes, I'm here. So just to say thank you, okay. On behalf of the group and also other epidemiologists. Thank you for everything you've done. Sorry, I'm at home.
No worries. Thank you all for having me. I'm excited to see what all of you do with R. Hit me up if you got any questions, but I hope to see a lot more Tidy Tuesday participants and more plots in R in the future. Thank you all for your time.
All right.
So
Thank you.
so much,
Bye.
Thank
Tanya.
you.
It's
Bye.
going to be a goodbye here. Bye bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.